Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Behind the Line. My name is Elliot Johnson. I'm one of the pastors here and the host of this here podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Whether you're watching or you're listening, we're so glad that you have chosen to join us today. I have a very special guest, a new guest, the newest member of our staff. I'm excited to get to just have a conversation with him. And so come along with us as we enjoy this time. So new staff member, tell us who you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself. What's your name? Who are you?
Yeah, so my name is Logan Phillips. I just got hired as the worship pastor at State Line, so I'm excited to be here. Moved my family 1,100 miles across the country from Live Free or Die, state of New Hampshire, and that was a 18-hour drive that we did over 2 days with my wife, my two kids, who are 2.5 and 1, and my cat and my dog. And so that was it was a treat. And so, man, it ended up being, all things considered, super great. We drove from Nashua, New Hampshire to Buffalo, New York in one day.
Okay.
Which was about 10 hours. And then Buffalo to Rockford the second day. So,
yikes.
But yeah, it was a big trip. We are getting settled. But yeah, we're here. A little bit about me. I grew up in Southern Illinois originally, which doesn't give us a whole lot to talk about because whenever you're there, it's like, oh, look, it's a farmhouse and a cornfield and a Hardee's on every corner. But that's about it. So, yeah, I'm from Southern Illinois. I've lived in New Hampshire the past 5 years doing full-time ministry out there, and now I'm back in Northern Illinois and happy to be here. So
Sweet. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And officially you are our, what's your official title? Worship?
I am worship pastor.
Worship pastor. Okay. So why worship? Why is worship your jam? Why is that your thing?
Yeah, so, man, for a long time I would have told you it wasn't.
Really?
Yeah, so you know how they say whenever you've got a calling on your life, like God opens doors. You and I have had conversations about this. Mm-hmm. Looking back on my life, so I resonate a lot with the Jonah story. So I grew up a preacher's kid, and my dad was bivocational, so he worked in a factory for a full-time job, but he preached on the weekends. And so I grew up in the church doing that kind of thing. But I resonate a lot with the story of Jonah because all growing up, I felt ministry as a call on my life to some degree. Whenever you're like 11, you might not feel that as strong as you do when you're like 17. But I had these two kind of egos. I had my church self that like served and liked church and loved Jesus, and then I had like my at school and sports, and those two were not aligned. They were different. So all growing up, I kind of fought that. I liked being in church, but I also liked playing sports just as much, if not more, than I did doing church stuff. And so, looking back, hindsight's always 20/20. There was every opportunity that God could have opened a door for me to do ministry, for me to be involved in ministry, to have great mentorship that were, Christian leaders who loved me, who weren't afraid to call out when I was doing stupid things.
Yeah.
And so, why is worship my jam? In my opinion, worship is just about everything we do inside the church, and the way in which we live our life outside of the church, and not two, but in the same way. Right?
Yeah.
But specifically when we're talking about worship ministry, the medium through which I do ministry most of the time is through music, right? And so I actually didn't do any – this is actually a funny story. So I didn't do anything musical until I was in 11th grade because of that sports
the wrestling
conflict. And so, like, music was not the cool thing to do, and I really wanted to do the cool thing. And so started to get involved in music, realized that that was just something I kind of naturally got.
Yeah.
Like, for example, no one ever had to teach rhythm to me. So, like, there's home videos of me as, like, a 3-year-old playing a little toy guitar. And, like, I wasn't doing anything with, like, my fretting hand. But, like, my left hand is, like, keeping time with songs. And so, like, that was just something I had. But, man, so music was always something that just came very naturally to me. And as I grew up, as I kind of moved away from home, I began to care less about what everybody else thought of me, and started to pursue who God created me to be and who I knew I was supposed to be. And so having the music kind of skill set and just kind of a natural bent towards ministry, that just kind of seemed like a perfect kind of hand-in-glove combination. And then so I went to Christian college to pursue worship ministry because I liked music.
Okay.
In college was when I really began to fall in love with like what that meant and what that looks like in a corporate setting with a group of people.
Yeah. And
how that's transformative for us to look more like Christ permanently because of it. And so, talking specifically in a corporate setting, worship is my jam because I love to be able to walk with people through that journey of transformation and see that kind of light bulb go on for people whenever God's revealed something to them, or they've had the word that we use now is like breakthrough.
Yes.
So they've had like breakthrough where they understand something, or they know why something happened, or they just experienced God in a new way and can understand the love and grace of Jesus more because of that. So I'm really passionate about that. That's why I love it.
Yeah. I there's one thing that you said that I think is really powerful. You talked about how you like to walk with people when it comes to like leading worship. It's not just, hey, look at me up front. This is what I'm doing. Repeat after me. It's a journey. And I told my students this the other day, but like it is so important to realize that like Jesus' ministry on earth was relational. Like he didn't just say, here's what you do, now go do it. He said, here's what you do, let's go do it. It was like a collaborative effort. And so that's one thing that I'm like, man, that's powerful. It is so much of like, let's do this together. It's not just look at me, monkey see, monkey do.
Right. I had a professor in college who, on the very first day of like all of our worship ministry classes, she sat us down, and she goes, "All right, guys, I want you to look around." And we're like, a bunch of 19-year-olds that are like, okay. And, we're looking around at these people that we don't know yet at all. And she goes, the people that are surrounding you right now are going to be very important in your ministry life. You're going to get to know them. You're going to know their weaknesses. You're going to know their strengths. And if I can tell you one thing, it's that worship in and of itself, but worship ministry and just this road that you're about to go on is not a sprint. It is a marathon.
Yeah, that's good.
And so pace yourself.
Yeah.
And so like in regards to walking with people, right? Like worship is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You're not going to, and I think sometimes like that's what we expect. A friend of mine says that we worship a crock pot God in a microwave culture. Right? So like God does things in his own timing and his timing is perfect.
Yeah.
But we always expect it to happen in like 30 seconds.
Right.
And so I love that journey where like, what happens for you in a worship service over the course of a year might be different than what happens for me, but that God's still using that in a powerful way for his kingdom. So
that's
I think
so good.
It's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I know that you're new, but over the course of time that you've been here, what are some things that you have been loving about State Line?
Yeah. So, I mean, this isn't very deep, but like I love the facility. It's like a beautiful building. You guys have nice space to do ministry. Like that's one thing.
Correction, you remember you're on.
We have awesome stuff. But no, and part of the thing too that like ultimately led me to like accept the position that was offered me here was just like kind of the culture that I get to be a part of in like staff. So it's very, very relational, I'm not going to say like relaxed, but like kind of relaxed.
Yeah.
Like everybody's working on their stuff, but it's like, someone may pop in and just like, hey, how you doing? Or do that kind of stuff. Which is not to like say bad things, but like that's not necessarily what I was used to that level of like relational aspect going back and forth. And so that's been nice. And just kind of like a reset for like my ministry and my family, and like in a new area across the country, like in a very different part of the world. And so it's been good. It's been cool.
Yeah. What's one of your favorite things in Rockford so far?
Oh, man. There's everything here. Like, anything that you could imagine wanting to do, want to eat, except for, like, maybe not do.
Yeah.
But anything you want to eat, basically any store you are interested in going to, places you want to go shopping, like, it's all here. And based on where I live, it's all within, like, 10 minutes, which is awesome. But, like, Velvet Robot, I mean, I've been there probably, like, 8 or 9 times.
It's good,
now.
right?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. What's they're saying? Death before decaf?
Something like that. Something crazy.
Death over or decaf before, I don't remember.
Something
like that.
It involves death. I know
they don't like decaf.
It's funny because I know some Rockfordians will probably cringe when you say stuff like, oh, it's so awesome, it has everything, because they're like, we have nothing. There's just such a rich history of, like, Rockford being this, town that didn't have much, but now it's the city that's progressing and it's growing. But I think we're the only 2 staff members that moved from, we're not like from Rockford. We moved from one place and moved to here, and so
we came willingly.
Yes, we came willingly. We weren't like we were transplants. So, but it's such a diverse area, and it's like amazing to see how much potential, not just like as a community, but also like thinking about like the mission that we're here to do as well.
Exactly.
There's just so much potential, and that's one of the things that I feel like I love about Rockford too, is like, man, there are so many people who are like just like awesome, and there's also so much room to like share the love of God and be the hands and feet of Jesus, and it's just awesome. Yeah, I don't know, I love it. Speaking of loving, what are some things that you are loving about State Line, Rockford, maybe your journey here, where your family's at now because of some of the move? Like, what are some things that you're loving?
Yeah, so where we're living now is the first place we've lived in my marriage, which is almost 5 years in a couple months. Woohoo!
Awesome.
And since having kids, where we've had a backyard.
Yeah.
So we lived in an apartment for a while, then we had like a townhouse, which is like more of a thing in New England.
Mm-hmm.
But the house that we just moved into like has a nice backyard, and so like I'm loving that.
Yeah.
So like this is gonna sound really silly, but like I grew up, I was fortunate enough to not have to like have a job to get money. So my parents were like, if you like behave and like take care of the yard, like don't feel bad about asking for money, which is a huge blessing. And not everybody grew up that way.
For sure.
But like I haven't mowed grass since I was like 17. Just because like when I was 18, I went to college, and then like I haven't had to do that. And
Right.
so like Monday night, I mowed.
How did that go?
And it
for
was
you?
like my yard. You know what I mean? And then I like weed whacked, which like sounds really silly, but like I enjoyed it. I like put in my headphones. I like wore Crocs.
There you go.
Yeah, it was good.
A true Midwesterner.
You're not rocking if you're not crocking, man.
Did you put him in sport mode while you were?
No, I left him in comfort mode.
Okay,
man.
okay.
I
yeah.
thought about it, but I was like, that's a little bit too much
Yeah.
in my basketball shorts right now. So yeah, like having a yard is nice, and just like allowing or having a space for like my girls to like go outside. That like play with like I have a swing set now, which is like just awesome. It's just super fun to like have them a space where like they can play together and thrive and just like be outside.
Yeah,
because,
for sure.
There's not as much here like in regards to like outside. Like there's mountains in New Hampshire and like the ocean's pretty close by, but like we can have a yard now and like play outside, which is great. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's so important to like love where you're at, because it just makes everything so much better. Like the last place that I was at, there was just nothing. It was like a barren wasteland. It was Farm Town, USA. So it was hard to
Iowa, right?
Yeah.
There's a saying about Iowa.
What is it?
It's a word that starts with I, out wandering around. They say Iowa's idiots out wandering around.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, it is. But
it was just like, okay, everybody's farming. Like, that's cool, but it was hard to like. I like to go out. I like to, be a part of the city or the nightscape, whatever you want to call it. And there just wasn't one. So moving here was like such a reset. It was like a breath of fresh air. It's like, oh, I love it here. And so, and it makes it so much easier to love serving when you love where you're at.
Yeah, it's different too. This is the biggest city we've lived in. So like Nashua was like 95,000. I think Rockford's like close to 150, right?
I don't know. It might be bigger than that.
So, anyway, over 100,000 people.
It's big.
And so it's been interesting too. Like we went, I had some family visiting, and we were like, where do we want to get dinner? And they wanted to go to Texas Roadhouse, which is like, all right, we're back in the Midwest. Let's go to Texas Roadhouse. And we like called, and they're like, oh, it's a 2-hour wait. And I was like, holy smokes, it's like a Friday. I mean, granted, it was a Friday night.
Okay.
And the weather was nice, but it's like 2 hours. And I was like, well, we live in a big city. Like, that's like 150,000 people. Like,
there's no excuse. There's so many places to eat.
Right.
There should not be a 2-hour wait at Texas Road. Come on, Rockford. Like,
I know, get it together.
Did you go?
They need to get it. No.
Where'd you end up?
Oh, man. So we ended up, we called Texas Roadhouse. We called Outback. We called like a couple different places, and ultimately ended up going to Applebee's. Yeah, which is like, okay.
It's like Field of Dreams.
It was fine.
Everything you got, everything you want, it's right there at Applebee's. It's true. And
Friendly
it's cheap.
neighborhood Applebee's.
What are some things that you are learning, whether it be in your life or about State Line? What are some things that you've been learning over the course of your time here?
Yeah, man. So ever since 2020 hit, it's been the same thing. And I can tell you exactly. It's that I don't know. So my youngest daughter was born in February of 2020. And so that was right before COVID happened.
Right.
So like leading up to 2020, there was a lot of anticipation because like 2020, everybody talked about 2020 vision.
Yeah.
Right. Like 2020 is going to be our year.
Right.
And I had a kid on the way, and then she came, and then the world shut down, and then everything was basically flipped upside down.
Yeah.
From my work life at the time to my home life at the time. And it wasn't necessarily bad. It was just different.
Yeah.
And so from basically the moment 2020 hit, even until right now, God is continually telling me, like, you don't know. You think you have a plan for how you're going to be a parent. You think you have a plan for the type of pastor you're going to be.
Yeah.
You think you have a plan for, like, the next, 5 years of your life, and you don't.
Yeah.
And a little bit about, my story, which hopefully, like, as time goes on, a lot of people will get to know me a lot better. But in my growing up, and even still, sometimes I tend to like hold God at like an arm's length of like, hey, I got this, and like I'll tap you on the shoulder if I need you.
Yeah.
But like ever since 2020 hit, it's like no. He's continually saying you don't know, and I've got this, and I've got a plan. Yeah. And so like even now, back in Illinois. 2 kids, 2 pets, married for 5 years, starting my second full-time ministry. Like, there's a whole lot of stuff that I have to learn still.
Yeah.
And so, not keeping God at that arm's length is really important just in everything.
Yeah. What are some ways that you begin to like draw God closer into your plans? Like what are some ways that you've been like actively trying to make sure that he's like an active part of, instead of the, hey God, I got this, how are you trying to like more so incorporate him in like where you're going, what you're doing?
Yeah. So I would say that the main way for me is like being a parent. Because like being a parent is the best thing probably that I've ever done in some capacity. But there's nothing in the whole world that will bring you to your knees faster than being a parent.
Wow.
Like I could raise the girls and they would probably be okay.
Yeah.
But like they're getting to a point now, or even as they grow, like because they see me all the time, I see my own junk in them. And like they do things because they see me do things.
Yeah.
And like it just brings you to your knees, and it's like, God, I like give me grace because I'm doing my best, but I do not have this figured out yet. And so like, just because this is so relative in my life right now, like, parenting is what immediately jumps to mind. And there's nothing there are a few things that can teach you more, or a few things that have taught me more about God than being a parent. Because one, for example, like I got home from work one day and my daughter Kendall came running at me and she's like, "Daddy's home," which is like awesome in and of itself. But then my wife was like, "Oh, be careful, she's poopy." And I was like, "That's okay, I love her even when she's poopy." And I was like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
God loves us even when we're poopy. You know, which is like, it's a very elementary thought, but like it's actually like, wow. As much as I feel that towards my daughter, God feels that infinitely towards me.
Yes.
And so it's just like, wow, that's okay.
Yeah.
I get it. Kind of.
Right.
So
it's like even in the midst of our mess, like he still is like arms wide open, you know. I'm here for you.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
he knows.
Yeah.
It's like he knows I'm poopy.
Yeah.
It's just like silly to say, but it's true.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think, you know, I don't have kids, but I tell my friends all the time that I'm living vicariously through them. Like it's my way to keep my arm's distance from,
Yeah,
you know what I
absolutely.
mean? Like I'm sure, I know at some point my wife and I will have kids, but it is so cool to see like my friends not only be my friends, but like they take their friend hat off for a second, put their parent hat on, like when we're hanging out, and it's like it's this shift. But I've seen so much growth in my friends since they've had kids, and it is. There's something that like clicks.
Yeah, it definitely brings out the best and the worst.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but I so see that, and I can resonate with that from afar. I don't have kids, but you know, it's so true. I've seen it kind of change the way that even my friends behave toward me. Sometimes they're a little bit more gracious. Sometimes they're a little bit more understanding. Sometimes the way that they listen is just different. Different than any of my other friends, the way that they listen. And so it's been cool to just see that and realize like what God can do through that. So that's super powerful. Now, you know, now that you have made a conscious effort to try to involve God as much as possible in your plans, and you kind of you're getting rid of this idea of like, okay, God, you stay over there, I'm gonna be over here and do my stuff over here.
Or
trying,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's the key word, trying. What are some things that you are looking forward to? I know it's almost like the opposite of like trying to keep them away. Now you're trying to like look forward. It's still kind of weird, but like, what are some things that you're looking forward to in this next season of your life?
Yeah, so I try to be highly relational. And so like even like 3 weeks in, it's like killing me that I don't know people. You know what I mean? Like people that I'm going to get to serve with on Sundays.
Right,
and
right.
Like even just like the staff, like I know your names and like your spouses, but I don't like know you
Right.
very well.
Right.
And relationships, especially for my wife, like hospitality is one of her spiritual gifts. And so like she's as high of an extrovert as you can get. And so like not knowing people is like something that's a challenge right now. And it's still super early, and that's, you know, we will get to know people, but we're super excited to like invest in the community here and, you know, make friends and do ministry and do all that. So we're looking forward to that. And yeah, I mean,
What about a state line?
So there's that song. This is going to be funny, but if the bones are good, the rest don't matter, right?
Yeah.
And in all my conversations with like Greg and Tyler, like what I learned was like the bones are good.
Yeah.
There might not be a lot of flesh on the bones in regards to like the worship ministry right now, but the bones are good. And if the bones are good, the rest don't matter. And so I'm excited to like do ministry and work to like put some flesh on the bones that are here in regards to like the worship culture and the worship team and that like kind of camaraderie and all those things. And so that's in regards to State Line, that's probably the main thing I'm excited about.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, we are so excited to have you. I'm so glad you're a part of the team. I mean, just getting an opportunity to know you the little bit that I have has been really fun. And I'm really excited to see what God does through you at State Line and in Rockford. So I'm excited. Hopefully you guys at home listening to this or wherever you are in your car, hopefully you're excited as well. But thank you so much, Logan, for your time. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll see you guys in the next episode.